This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Happy New Year, December 31st. And today, I've got a guest for you today, top 10 PodMatch host, Caroline Biesalski, coming out of Germany. Recorded over 600 episodes this year, and happy to have her on the show, and really excited to talk with her. So, Caroline, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Briefly introduce yourself, and I'm really happy to dive into the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm based in Germany, as you said, and I transitioned from an entrepreneur, so to say, to a podcast host and coach now within the last 2 or 3 years. So I had an accounting company and with employees, and I decided this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I decided to invite more fun into my life. And this is why I started the podcast. It came to me by intuition. And now I teach people how to make inspired choices for their lives.
Yeah, really wonderful introduction. And so we will dive into the conversation. Well, one thing is talking about is, so you had a corporate leadership experience, and then what made you decide just to take the leap? And I'm sure it was very uncomfortable. And what advice do you have for people going into the new year that thinking about quitting their jobs or can't stand their boss or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, pursuing their dreams? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, thank you. This is my favorite question. So I have an experience in corporate life, and I worked at universities as well. So in research in the medical field and education. And because I always wanted to learn more for myself. So I studied economics and psychology. I started at the age of 35 and I created my own company. It was like, for me, it was to have the flexibility to work full time while being a mom with 2 little kids. My kids were 2 years and a newborn. So I had 2 boys. And then I was searching for something doing from home. And then I created this accounting business and I expanded it. So what advice would I give is, first of all, ask yourself, what do you really want for your life? And then take the courage and take a leap into the unknown and just realize your dreams. And if you are not alone, because there are so many people struggling, and there's support. So you can ask for help. And this is where I am here. You can reach out to me, no problem. I'm here to inspire and encourage you.
What a fascinating story. And so my follow-up question for you is, one thing is talking about is what I love is this power of choice. And we all have choices in our life, and we constantly complain about how this and that, but we can actually create a life aligned with our goals and values. So talk about the power of choice.
Yes. So I came across this topic of decision 3 years ago. But I think so making decisions is, first of all, you have to be aware that you have choices, because without choices, you cannot make a decision, right? So I went a step further, so to say, or I went back, where is the root cause for making decisions? And I explored this. So you have to become aware that you have choices or possibilities in your life, and then you explore everything that is there, and then you make a choice, like a mindful choice. And I want to emphasize that not making a choice is also making a choice. So it is the choice for procrastination, not growing, and complacency. So without the change we want to see in our life, without changing ourselves, we cannot grow. The choices are very important in every second in our life, and we can train this by forming the habit of being decisive.
I really love that. And so my follow-up question for you is this: when people make a choice, so for example, a choice that doesn't align, or a choice to move away from something that doesn't align with them, there's often that discomfort. So for example, people leave a job, and then let's say the doctor's listening to the podcast, they choose to start their own company or their business, but for a little while they're leaving the comfort of a hospital salary, or the perks of being a doctor. How do you address the power of choice, but then also you have these consequences, both positive and negative, especially the negative ones? How do people let that?
Yeah, that is a great question, because I had exact the same discussion a couple of months ago with my best friend. So she started her job 3 years ago, and it was an exciting job. And also the vision of the company was aligned with her personal vision, or for herself, for her life, what she wanted to do. And then she got upset over the months with the environment, or her task, so to say. So she had to make a decision whether she stays there and is unsatisfied, or she takes a bold step of courage and leave that job, even though she didn't know where it all ends up. So now she made the decision, and she has no job at the moment, but she has a lot of time for herself to think about what does she really want. And I have to add something more. Sometimes we need to let go of something in order that the new thing can arrive in our life. There's this law of vacuum. When you create the vacuum, the place where there's nothing, then the new can come to that place. So it fills automatically. You don't have to worry. But the opportunities can only come when you let go of the old.
Interesting. Another thing I commonly see, because I used to formerly coach a lot of doctors, and they have this trouble of leaving things behind, and they secretly resent their colleagues for staying in a job. They know the job isn't good for them, and then they make the leap and transition into an entrepreneurship or different career or different job, and then they secretly resent the people that are there, and then they secretly resent the fact that they spent all this time there, and they have trouble leaving that behind, even though they know that choice to leave it was the best thing. What is this called, and how do you address it?
So I would call, when you see someone who's already there where you want to be, or who already made this courageous decision for their life. So we call it trigger. Sometimes it triggers an emotion in you that you want to change something. You want to have that what the other person has already. Then I would change the word into desire. The word trigger is your desire, is what you really want. So it can be your sign that you are on the right path. And of course, yeah, it takes courage to step into the unknown. And that is where we coaches, you said you coach people, you coach doctors, where we coaches come into play, because we can be by your side and hold you accountable a little bit. And also, yeah, take your hand and walk with you this path that we already been through, so to say. Because yeah, you don't see it from the outside that we requested help. So you are not alone. You don't have to do it alone. And I think, of course, people are judging you. They are talking negatively about you when you leave that path that they expected you to go. But at the end of the day, so to say, you have to be happy. And if you are not happy, then there's a time to make a change, to make a decision for yourself, not for the other persons. It's for you.
A follow-up question I have for you is, I've also seen this where they're on the wrong path, and they're very unhappy, and everywhere they go, they're unhappy, and then they're not happy where they are, and then they decide to leap from their current position, much like you did, and they're still unhappy. and they resent those people that are successful in the path that they're pursuing, and then they secretly resent those people that they left behind. How do you address this? What is this called, and how do you address it?
Yeah, I would call it, when you see someone you envy or you have resentment, then you see a future version of yourself. You see the person is doing what you want to do, and the person is just, it can be one step ahead, or it can also be 2 years ahead. And sometimes the fact that you are not happy is because you don't understand yet. So you can discover more why it is the case, why you are still in that place, because we can talk about mindset as well, because when you leave that position, you change something on the outside world, but what you have to change first is your inside, it's the thinking. So when you see yourself as the new version of yourself that has already like a happy life full of joy and like a job or something that fulfills you, the reason why you get up every day out of bed, right? Then you see that person, you step into that person and you become that person. Then you get happier and happier every day.
Yeah. And what are some coping mechanisms for people looking to heal from this? Obviously, transitions, career transitions, some of it can be failure. What are some coping mechanisms to help people move on and heal from this?
I understand what you mean. So I studied Napoleon Hill, and he did research about 2,500 people that were not successful. You call it failure, and 500 very successful people. So we can deviate the success principles from this book, Think and Grow Rich. So what the main thing I would say to this is, failure is when you call it a failure, it is a failure. But if you see it as a lesson, that you can learn something, then it is something positive, and it is something along the way you had to encounter, you had to face as a challenge, as an obstacle, and you can be empowered because you made it. Yes, and this is what I call success.
That's really interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is, so talking about lessons from 600 interviews, talk about insights from world-class leaders and change makers.
Yes. So the podcast came by intuition to me, 12th of December 2023, when I was on a road trip through let's say, the Western US. So I was in San Diego, and then in the middle of the night, it hit me, the word podcast appeared, and also the title inspired. So it is about inspiration. And you talked about, so I never intended to do 600 interviews. It came because everyone said yes when I asked people to be my guest. And I'm so happy that I make this experience, because I grow with it. It gets better, and also my ideas. So you have to do 300 interviews, for example, to come to this point to see, oh, I can change something with my questions, or I can speak more freely. I am encouraged and also more confident. And also now I had the intuition to write a book about my first year in podcasting, and the guests are all marvelous. There were only two guests, I can say, they were not inspiring to me, but maybe it was because I was in a bad mood at that day, and it can inspire someone else out there. And this is why I'm doing this, because to connect the world, to create peace, to create a safe space, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and to prove that it is possible to connect to someone you never spoke before, like we do now, and yeah, connect. Yes. It is possible.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, and I really love your enthusiasm. So next question I have for you is, for people, we talked about making the power of choice, and kind of we talked about triggers and how to deal with envy and resentment and moving on. What advice do you have for people who feel stuck or overwhelmed when faced with major life decisions?
Yeah. Okay. I heard it from a coach of mine, and she said it was really good. She said, when you feel overwhelmed, then celebrate, because it means that you made a change, something changed within you, and you have to deal with something. So I would say you celebrate first, and then you relax, because relaxing means nothing can harm you. You don't have to be scared. It's just the next step along, so on your path to your growth. You celebrate. And what else can I say? When you feel overwhelmed and stuck, yeah, you can reach out to someone, of course. There are people out there helping you. I mentioned it already. You will find someone. If the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You find someone you feel attracted to learn from the person who is 2 steps ahead of you. You can learn, and you don't have to do it alone at all. I made this mistake. I thought for my whole life, I thought I have to figure it out by myself. There's no one to help me. And otherwise, I would consider it as a weakness, right? When I asked for help, maybe this comes from my education. I thought, yeah, it was a weakness, but it wasn't. It's a strength to ask for help, because people can help you to make the next courageous step.
You made another really good point, is you talked about your prior training or kind of societal conditioning actually hindered you. So talk about how societal standards, the media, people surrounding you can actually be a hindrance, and how do you become aware of it, and how do you manage it mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally?
Yes, this is my favorite question. So I was labeled as shy and introverted as a child, and you develop anxiety. You don't have this anxiety by birth, because we only have two fears when we are born. It's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. I heard about that. And every anxiety is when you are afraid of spiders or something, or of public speaking, as I did. So I learned this only 1 or 2 years ago to overcome this. And I think your question was, how was it? Yes, I accepted those labels, and I saw myself as that. I identified as shy, and so I acted in that way. I accepted that label, but you can change it. You can form new habits. And this is also what I want to mention, is if you train it, if you really want to change, and you practice it, practice speaking, for example, or practice what you are afraid of, then you will gain a new skill, and you will be successful as well. And you will gain more confidence by doing this.
Beautifully said. Next question I have for you is, how do you, sounds like what you're describing is entrepreneurship is personal development, and there's a stage where we have to continually heal. And can someone build resilience and turn challenges into opportunities for growth?
Yes. So when I refer to my own story, I was really complacent for 10 years or so. When I created my company, I leveled it to a certain point, but it was not going further. So I was avoiding risks. And only 3 years ago, when I started in personal development, I discovered that there's so much more we can learn, especially about ourselves. So your question about resilience is the learning thing. When I change something in my thinking, and I see those different results in my life on the outer world, then I can build my resilience as well, and I can achieve anything that I put my mind to. And this is also, yeah, I talked about confidence a lot, because it all starts about, yeah, you change a little bit, you do baby steps, and you see the results, and then you have confidence to make the next courageous step.
Interesting. So the next question I have for you is moving on, is talking about, because you built a podcast, and it was quite interesting to how you revealed to me the insights you gained from starting your podcast, channeling and tuning into your intuition, and the word podcast came up. Talk about the key to, building authentic connections, the key to personal and professional fulfillment.
Yes. Okay. Authentic authenticity. Yes, difficult word, but not, but so it is the decision or the choice, once again, how you want to show up, right? You make this decision to be authentic with your listeners and also with your guests. And then when they see your heart, or they feel your heart, this heart-to-heart connection, this is where the magic happens. And this is also like the mastermind principle. I don't know if you are familiar with that. When you are two or more people in the room and you connect with your minds, we can call it universal mind or infinite intelligence, then we are more than the sum of our parts, right? And then there comes ideas also to create a business or whatever we want to do, a project together. And this is the magic. And you talk about connections. It's about how many times we connect with each other. So when I do podcasts, I meet these persons for the first time. We never spoke before. And this is where the magic happens as well. I create this connection, this safe place. And then we have a relationship and I can say, yeah, we are connected on LinkedIn. And then the next time we speak, I can refer to the podcast episode and say, oh, you remember we had this interview. And then when I want to collaborate with the people or do business, then it is so much more easier. And I agree with what you said. It's about creating powerful and authentic connections to other people.
I love that. And how do you navigate creating and building authentic connections in this day and age of viral social media? Obviously, technology has gotten to the point where we can connect over video. And does that hinder authenticity? And discuss the role of technology in building building connections, but also distancing us as well.
Yes, I understand. So I started during the pandemic. At the end of 2020, I attended a training against social phobia. I mentioned it. So I was not able to speak on camera or on Zoom like I do now, or I know it's called. So I trained myself and I still do because I accepted this, but I had to go through those challenges and also make these choices that I want to change something in my life. And this was not your question. So I started during the pandemic, and when it was over a little bit, when we were allowed to travel again, so to say, then I met the people I met first online, and this builds another a level of connection as well. When you met people in person, then it is so much easier to do business with them because the trust is so strong. And I agree what you say. It is not easy in social media, but I would say you can create the same kind of relationship because it's all about frequencies. And when you are fake, you are not authentic, they will feel it. Yes. You cannot fake authenticity, right? You are, so my advice is be you, because no one on this earth can be you. Only you.
I love that. I love how you describe frequencies, because another podcast that I just interviewed, she was talking about how the universe tunes into your feelings, and basically feelings are emotions, and those emotions are basically frequencies being emitted. And it doesn't matter what you can rationalize it, you can think about it, but your feeling and what you're emitting is what you'll attract. So I really love that. And I love this idea of just being you. The one thing that a lot of clients they do is they struggle with, especially shy and introverted, and when they say be you, but then, for example, you put them into social situations and they still doubt themselves and they still feel alone and isolated, and it's really hard for them to come out of their shell. How do you get over this, especially with being you, and talk about that?
Yes, I understand your question very well. And I have news for you. So I talked about the identifying process. You identify with the labels other people gave you. Yeah. And I can tell you, it is not you. It is not the real you. So personal development means you discover the real you, the best version of yourself. So you don't have to be afraid to get rid of I call it paradigm. It is your beliefs and habits that you form during the conditioning, and this is not helping you to achieve your goals, but you can change it if you are willing to make that choice. So we identify with shyness and introversion, but it is not you. So the real you would never stop you in achieving your goals. This is my answer. Thanks.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, again, a lot of people, they suffer from shyness and they come out of their shell and they say hello or they start a conversation, and it's still that programming. They get self-conscious, they're interacting, but then they go back and they beat themselves up. They're like, they look at everything in the wrong way. And so it's just, they self-judge themselves. But that's quite interesting. How can people, congratulations on the podcast, how can people find you and follow you, reach out to you, and connect with you in the new year?
Oh, this is my favorite question. Of course, I like to share. It is inspiredchoice.today is the website, and you find the podcast there, Inspired Choice Today. My name is Caroline B. You see the bees in the background, maybe. It means be inspired. And yeah, I love to connect with you, of course, all of the listeners, and to know more about you, to help you with the 20 minutes free breakthrough session to help you start your new year 2025.
Yeah, I really love that. Congratulations on all the success. This is recorded the New Year's Eve. It's actually New Year's Eve evening in Germany, and Happy New Year, and keep up the great work, and I'll see you in 2025.
Definitely. Happy New Year.